The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Chika wasn't asleep. She hadn't been able to sleep properly in weeks. She was sitting at the edge of the bed in the dark, still wearing the dress she'd put on for the dinner Chitty never came home for, when the screen lit up with a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it. Something told her not to. "Hello," she said. There was silence on the other end, then the sound of someone composing themselves. A woman's voice, low and careful, said, "Is this Chika?" "Chika Okafor." "Who is this?" Another pause. "My name is Remy. And I think we need to talk about your husband." Chika's hand tightened around the phone. She stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked out at the Abuja night. "Talk," she said. What Remy told her in the next 14 minutes didn't just break her heart. It rearranged everything. The business trips to London. The late-night calls he took outside. The way he'd started looking at her differently, as if she were furniture he'd grown tired of. It all clicked into terrible, perfect place. Chitty wasn't in London. He was in Dubai. He had been there for 3 days with Remy herself, but Remy hadn't called to gloat. Remy had called because she'd just found a second phone in Chitty's jacket pocket. A phone with messages from yet another woman. A phone that showed Chitty was running not one, but 2 affairs simultaneously, and Remy, furious and humiliated, had decided that if she was going down, she was not going down alone. Chika sat back down on the bed. She did not cry. She pressed the phone against her chest and breathed slowly, the way her mother had taught her to breathe when the world tried to take her knees out from under her. She had built a life with this man. 11 years. 2 miscarriages she never fully healed from. A business she'd poured herself into so she could feel like something was hers. She had stood by Chitty through failed contracts, through a period when his architecture firm nearly collapsed. Through his mother's illness and the long months of caring for her when his siblings disappeared, she had given this marriage everything a woman could give without losing herself completely. And he had been looking her in the eye, kissing her cheek, and flying to Dubai with another woman. She made one decision that night, and she made it quietly. She was not going to shout. She was not going to cry on the phone to her sister or confront him in an airport arrival hall like a scene from a bad film. She was going to finish what he had started, but she was going to do it on her own terms. She called her lawyer the next morning. Chitty came back from Dubai on a Wednesday, tanned and easy, rolling his suitcase through the front door with a smile that could have sold insurance. He kissed her forehead and said he'd brought her something from the duty-free. Chika smiled and asked about the trip. She poured him a drink and listened to him describe a business meeting that had never happened. She watched his mouth move and thought, carefully and clearly, "You have no idea what is already in motion." 2 weeks later, Chitty announced another trip. Lagos this time. A client. Very important. Would only be a few days. Chika nodded. "Of course," she said. "Take care of yourself." She waited until his car turned out of the compound. Then she picked up the phone and called Emeka. Emeka was Chitty's closest friend, the person Chitty trusted most in the world, which was exactly why Chika had chosen him. She didn't trust Emeka. But she had something he needed, which was the truth. Because Emeka had been covering for Chitty for years. Providing alibis. Driving the lies. And Chika had spent the last 2 weeks gathering proof of that too. She didn't threaten him. She simply laid it out, calmly, on the table. "I know everything," she said. "I'm not angry with you, but you will come with me to Lagos. This weekend. You will act as my companion. That is all I am asking." Emeka was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Chika, I'm sorry. I should have." "I don't need your apology right now," she said. "I need your availability. Saturday morning. 6 a.m. Be outside my gate." They flew to Lagos on Saturday. Chika wore a dress she had bought specifically for this weekend, deep green, fitted at the waist, the kind of dress that made people look twice. She had done her hair and her nails and she looked, by any measure, like a woman on a very good holiday. Emeka sat beside her on the plane and said almost nothing. He looked like a man being taken to his own sentencing, which, Chika thought, was probably accurate. She had already found out the hotel. Remy, precise and unforgiving in her fury, had sent every detail, the name of the hotel in Victoria Island, the room number, the restaurant where they had dinner reservations on Saturday evening. Remy had made her call and stepped back. But they checked into the same hotel. Different floor. Chika requested a room facing the pool, unpacked her dresses carefully, ordered room service, and waited. She saw Chidi at the pool bar at 4 in the afternoon. He was laughing. He was wearing a white shirt, open at the collar, looking relaxed in a way he never looked at home anymore. There was a woman beside him, younger than Chika had imagined, softer looking, with the easy manner of someone who believed herself to be in the better situation. Chika watched them from behind her sunglasses and felt something move through her chest, something hot and clean, like a wound being cauterized. Then she turned to Emeka and said, "Order me a cocktail. Something with mango. And put your arm around my shoulder." Emeka did not argue. She didn't have to manufacture the scene. It manufactured itself. Chidi saw her. She watched the exact moment his brain short-circuited, the way his smile froze, his hand went still on his glass, his eyes moving from her face to Emeka's arm and back to her face again. She smiled at him. A slow, private smile. Then she looked away, as if he were not the most important thing in her field of vision. He came over. His voice was a low, controlled wreck. "Chika. What are you doing here?" "Holiday," she said pleasantly. "I needed a break. You know how Abuja can get." She tilted her head toward Emeka. "You remember Emeka?" The muscle in Chidi's jaw was working very hard. Emeka simply nodded as if everything was completely fine. "Can I speak to you privately?" "I'm a bit busy right now," Chika said. "Maybe later." She turned back to her cocktail. She heard him standing behind her for a full 10 seconds before he walked away. The real confrontation happened at dinner. She had requested the table beside his reservation. She sat down with Emeka at 7:45, and at 8 p.m., Chidi walked in with the woman. The woman saw Chika at the next table and said, loudly, "Who is that and why? Does she keep looking at you?" Chidi said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. Chika stood up. She looked at the woman briefly, felt no anger toward her at all, then turned to her husband. She felt the final, complete closing of a door she had been holding open for years. "I want you to know," she said quietly, "that I have known for a long time. And I want you to know that I am not here because I am desperate. I am here because I wanted you to see my face when I stopped caring." Chidi's face collapsed. Right there, in that restaurant, in front of the woman he'd brought to Lagos, in front of the waiter who had appeared at exactly the wrong moment, his face just fell apart. "Chika. Please. Please, I will explain everything. Please don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," she said. "You did everything. I'm just finishing it." She went back to her room, ordered dessert, and sat on the balcony watching the Lagos lights. For the first time in months, she could breathe all the way down. Chidi came to her door at 10 p.m. Then again at midnight. She heard him saying her name through the wood, his voice getting smaller each time. She did not open it. Not out of drama, but because she had finally understood that she had opened that door too many times already. Every time she should have stood still, she had opened it. And every time she opened it, She had trained herself to believe that love meant absorbing whatever someone was willing to throw at you. She flew back to Abuja alone on Sunday morning. Chidi returned 3 days later, hollowed out. He sat across from her at the kitchen table and said everything a man says when the ground has finally given way beneath him. He was sorry. It meant nothing, all of it. She was the only real thing. He had been foolish and afraid. He would do anything, therapy, transparency, whatever she needed. He cried. She had never seen him cry before, and she had imagined, once, that seeing it would soften something in her. It didn't. She watched him cry and felt mainly tired. I believe you're sorry, she said. I think you're genuinely sorry right now, in this kitchen, because you're afraid of losing everything. But sorry isn't a plan. And I have been the plan. I have been the one holding everything together while you kept looking for reasons to leave without ever actually leaving. I'm done being the plan, Chidi. He reached across the table and took her hand. Please point one more chance. Just one. She looked at their hands. His were shaking. Hers were still. She said yes. She did not know, sitting there, whether it was love or habit or the particular grief of almost giving up. But she said yes, and she meant it, and for 3 weeks Chidi was a different man. Present. Home by 7. He booked a weekend in Port Harcourt. He brought flowers twice. He sat through a full film without touching his phone. She started to breathe again. Then on a Tuesday evening, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on. The bedroom dresser. She would not normally look. She had promised herself she was done looking. But the name on the screen was one she recognized, a name she had seen once in a message she was never supposed to see, and before she could stop herself, she had read the words beneath it. I'm pregnant. It's yours. We need to talk. Chika put the phone down. She sat on the bed. She heard the shower still running. She heard him humming something in there, something light and ordinary. Completely unaware that his second life had just walked through the door. She thought about the flowers. She thought about Port Harcourt. She thought about his shaking hands at the kitchen table and the way he'd said please like it was the last honest word left in him. And then she thought about herself at 28, standing at an altar in a dress her mother had helped her choose, full of a certainty she had never once questioned. She thought about who she had been before this marriage. Started quietly dismantling her. She thought about her design business, which she had nearly sold the previous year because Chidi said it was taking too much of her attention. She thought about the trips she hadn't taken, the friendships she'd let go quiet, the version of herself she had been slowly trading away, piece by piece, in exchange for a marriage that was already hollow. When Chidi came out of the bathroom, she was standing by the window. The phone was on the bed where she'd left it. He saw it immediately. She watched the color drain from his face. Chika. Don't, she said. Please don't explain this one. I don't have room for another explanation. It was before. I promise you it was before everything, before Lagos, before I came back and we. Chidi. Her voice was quiet. Absolute. Like a door being closed, not slammed. I loved you. I genuinely, completely loved you. And for a long time I confused loving you with being willing to survive anything you did. I thought that was strength. I thought that's what a real marriage looked like, you stay, you absorb, you forgive, you rebuild. But I have been rebuilding this same wall for years and you keep breaking it, and I am tired. I am so tired. He moved toward her. She held up her hand. There is a folder in the top drawer of my desk, she said. It has been there for 6 weeks. Read it before you say anything else to me. He opened the drawer. He stood there reading, and she watched his face change as he moved. Through page after page, the lawyer's letters, the financial separation documents, the quiet, thorough, 3-month work of a woman who had already made her decision and was simply waiting for the right moment to stop pretending otherwise. "You were already leaving," he said softly. It wasn't an accusation. It was almost wonder. "Even when you said yes at the kitchen table. You were already. I was giving you one last chance to be who I needed you to be," she said. "And you were exactly what you have always been. I can't keep being surprised by that." She picked up her bag from the chair by the door. She had packed it that afternoon, not yet knowing why, only that something in her body had understood before her mind caught up. "I hope you figure out who you are," she said. "I genuinely mean that. But I cannot wait for it anymore. I have my own life to get back to." She walked out. Not because she wasn't hurting, she was hurting so deeply that each step down the staircase felt like it cost her something physical, but because she had spent 11 years looking back, always watching for him, always bending her path to match his direction. She was done looking back. She drove to her sister's house, sat in the car outside for 10 minutes, and let herself cry. Properly. The full weight of it, all at once. She gave herself those 10 minutes. Then she wiped her face, picked up her bag, and knocked on the door. Her sister opened it, took one look at her, and without a single word, stepped aside and let her in. 2 years later, Chika's interior design firm had a new studio in Abuja and had just signed its first hotel contract in Nairobi. She was in Kenya for the project launch, standing on a terrace at dusk, looking out at the city. Her phone lit up. Chidi's name. She looked at it. She thought, briefly, of the kitchen table and his shaking hands. Then she turned the screen face down and looked back at the skyline. She had paid for this view. And it was entirely, completely hers. If this story moved something in you, if you've ever stayed too long, forgiven too much, or finally found the courage to choose yourself, drop a comment right now and tell us, at what moment did Chika truly win? Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you have not subscribed yet, hit that button, because we don't just tell stories here. We tell the ones that remind you of who you are.